Hi there, my name is Dusty Rhodes and welcome to Amplify, the Engineers Journal podcast.
We certainly need a rail link into our city centre. That's a given. For me, Metrolink, it's way more than just one link from the airport into the city centre. It's part of an integrated public transport system.
Delivering world-class infrastructure while driving Ireland's journey towards a sustainable future sounds ideal, but ultimately it's a major balancing act. We're about to get the inside story on what it takes to set up and manage vital national assets, including over 1,200 kilometres of motorways across the country. Joining us to fill us in is a leading expert with over 27 years of experience in the field. As a director at Egis, he's at the very heart of transforming our critical national infrastructure. It's a pleasure to welcome Eamon Daly.
Hi Dusty, it's great to be here.
So listen, Eamon, tell me, what got you into this fantastic industry we have called engineering?
Well, as a secondary student in St. Kieran's College in Kilkenny, I wasn't sure what career path I wanted. So I was stronger at maths and science subjects and things that involved problem solving, which I found, throughout my career is what engineering design is largely about. So I decided to put engineering down in the CEO forms. I was lucky enough to study civil engineering in UCD, graduating in 1995 with a degree and a master's in transportation engineering in 1996.
And what was your very first gig?
So I started working in Kilkenny County Council as a graduate engineer in the road design office under the guidance of Oliver Mannion. He was a senior executive engineer at the time in Kilkenny County Council. I worked on some projects such as Callan Bypass and other local projects in Kilkenny. And I stayed there for probably about 2 years. And then I moved on to Fingal County Council, where I worked on the design of the M1 Northern motorway between the airport and Balbriggan, which I think was the last major road scheme to be detailed designed within a local authority. And it was probably the last major scheme that was an employer detailed design contract, because going forward, major schemes were all either design and build or PPP type contracts. And in Fingal County Council, I had a great mentor in Fingal County Council in John Fitzsimons, who went on then to have a very successful career in Transport Infrastructure Ireland. So I joined JB Barry and Partners in 1999, and this was at the start again, as I said, of the major interurban road building programme in Ireland. So historically, JB Barry and Partners were a water, wastewater and civil consultancy business, but with the publication of this National Road Needs Study and the National Development Plan to set out to build dual carriageways and motorways around the country, JB Barry and Partners, under the guidance of Liam Prendeville and Niall McDermott, set up a transportation division. And, I joined them at that point, right at the start, which I felt was a really good opportunity to get involved and to grow and have good opportunities within that company to grow. And I stayed there for about 4 years, and I worked on some really great projects such as the N7 Ace Road, the N3 Navan to Shockland, N11 Rathnew to Arklow, and the N8 Cashel to Mitchelstown. So they're all big projects. There's a lot of projects being built and brought through planning at that time.
I do remember that N3 right out to Dunshaughlin. I did drive through that for maybe 4 years or something like that. So it's funny how decades later you meet the man who was behind it. But I'll give you this. I love that road now. I absolutely love it. Anyway, let's continue on.
I left JB Barry's in 2003. I moved to the west of Ireland. So my girlfriend at the time is a Mayo woman, and she's now my wife. But we settled in Westport, and I took up a job with Tobin Consulting Engineers based out of their Castlebar office. And I stayed with them for 4 years and worked on some good projects there too, the N7 Nina project, and I worked on the gas terminal up in Ballinaboy. But in 2007, I got an opportunity to rejoin JB Barry's and open up their Castlebar office, so their West of Ireland office. And we started with a project called the N17 Tune to Claremorris. It wasn't a great time to start up an office because 2007 was just coming into recession. But we had a small crew here for maybe 4 or 5 people, and we managed it through a few years. And as we came out of recession, then we started to grow the office, and I suppose we're here to this day.
That's it's interesting though for anybody who is in engineering and you're working on all these amazing projects, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hang on, I'm now in charge of the regional office. I've now got people who are working for me. It's a completely different skill set to actually doing engineering. How did you handle that transition from a technical engineering role to being a leader?
Well, I think the transition was quite easy for me because we started off with a small number of the office and it grew from there. And look, even though I'm leading people and managing people, like I've always stayed involved in the engineering design and the detail of projects. It's something I really enjoy.
I want to get into the meat and potatoes and some of the projects that you've mentioned that you have worked on. And of course, now today we've got Egis who are working on the Dublin Tunnel. Lynch Tunnel is under their purview, isn't that the word? Luas as well, which I believe you're directly involved with. But let's go back to Galway and the N17. You were involved in the new road there from Gort to Tuam. And a ton of problems it presented you, I believe, as well.
Yeah, the N17 Gort to Tuam is a motorway scheme from Gort in south of Galway up to Tuam. The north is in the order of about 60 kilometres long. And we were designing that in a joint venture with Arab. So the contractor was a company, a PPP company called Direct Route. And the contractors were Rhodes, Sisk and Lagan. So we designed the northern half of the scheme, approximately 30 kilometres of motorway. But there were some significant challenges on that project. Soft ground, so there was a significant depth of peat, and that was underlined by Mars. So it was soft ground up to 13, 14, 15 metres depth. So initially you might dig out the soft ground and replace it, but it wasn't an option with that depth. And then there was a constraint that the road had to be built by a certain time. So you can surcharge soft ground, but it takes a long time to settle and compact. So we came up with a solution of about 2 kilometres of the road where we put in these circular band drains and compacted the ground quicker. But look, it was a challenge at the time, but it's worked out really well. Another thing on that project was karst as well. The area is full of limestone and karst rock. So we came up with a protocol to identify karst in the area, and we did come across some significant karst features, and we had to develop solutions for those, geotechnical solutions for those. So it was a really good project.
Can you give me an example of one of the solutions?
Yeah, I can. In some cases, there were just standard details where we fill this if the karst feature was small enough. In one particular solution, it was quite a large hole in the ground, to put it in simple terms, and it was near a bridge structure. So we actually ended up building a concrete structure above the hole and spanning the hole with foundations either side of it. So it was like a structure on a structure.
And was this kind of around the time where you had taken over, you were in charge of the regional office, and this was you for the first time kind of being a proper buck stops here man?
Yeah, well, it was probably a few years later, but I suppose while we've a regional office, we use our offices around the country with different people in different offices, and we've different specialists in different places, and they all take part in the design, and they're all part of the team.
Ah, no, that's good. Also, now it wasn't just around Galway; you were also involved in the N22 around the Macroom area.
Yeah, so that project is a bit more recent, probably opened in the last 2 or 3 years. It's a project down in County Cork. It's about 22 kilometres of motorway. There was a significant number of bridges on that project. I think there was well over 40 bridges and a lot of other smaller structures as well. And look, there was a lot of challenges to that project. The topography was difficult down there. There was some large river bridges. In fact, there was, I suppose, two in particular. Is the Bowhill River Bridge, which is a 120 metre 2-span steel bridge. And there was a lot of constraints around the site. There was high voltage lines and poor ground conditions. So we came up with this innovative solution to push launch the bridge rather than lift the beams in place. And I think it's I'm almost certain it's the largest one of its kind in Ireland.
So tell me more how the push launch works.
So the push launch, basically, you set up a structure beside it, basically, and in simple terms, you just push the bridge in from one side over to the other. But it has to be quite precise because it has to land on intermediate beams along the way.
So the picture in my head, strangely enough, is of ER, the TV show, and they're in the operating theatre and they've got the big fat man on a gurney that they brought in. They're pushing him onto the operating table. Is that what you did with the bridge?
Well, we push it in, but it gets very precise.
Well,
to put it mildly, but it is precise. It has to land on intermediate piers, and it has to push to the far side and land in the right position at the right level.
Do you ever worry about the precision of that? Because, I mean, quite often you have to be just within millimetres or bang on.
It is, yeah, it's within millimetres. But no, look, it's measured all the time and surveyed all the time. And there's great technology for it at the moment. Is
there any particular challenge when you're doing getting things together and getting them merged up perfectly with a two-span bridge as opposed to a regular bridge?
Well, look, generally where we have a two-span bridge, we're lifting in beams or cranes, so it's not as difficult. But with a push launch, we're pushing it from one side to the other. It is more challenging because you have to push it across through the intermediate piers to land on the far side on the end pier abutment at the far side.
And where did the bridges come from?
So the bridges came from Spain. So the steel came from Spain. From Seville, actually. So they were brought up by ship from Seville into Cork and transferred up,
By road?
By road, yeah. And they are huge. Like the depth of the beams I think they were 3.75 metres in depth. So you can imagine they were huge.
So this is essentially, the bridge it's a 2-lane road and you're transporting it on a 2-lane road.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, again, you're specialists transporters who do that, and they've special equipment, and they do it overnight time and closed roads with escorts.
There was another bridge that you were working on, the N22, and it was a bit of a record breaker as well, I believe.
Yeah, so there was two large single span this time river bridges, Bellany and the Slan bridges. And, initially when we looked at those bridges, they were going to be steel bridges, but we developed a concrete bridge design for those. And they were the longest single span concrete bridges constructed in Ireland at the time. I think they still are. And they were, I think it was 49.9 metres long was the longest span. So we didn't quite get to 50 metres, but close enough.
At what stage of the project did you go, we're not going steel, we're going with concrete?
So again, we looked at it, we would have been involved in the tender design for the contract, the design and build. So we design for a contractor. So we do a tender design and then we move on to if they're successful with their tender design, we do a detailed design for them. So initially we would have looked at the tender design stage to see if there was efficiencies and economies of scale to try and come up with a solution that might value engineer the bridge for the contractor, basically to give them maybe a competitive advantage.
Grant, so was it more a financial decision than it was a construction decision?
Look, it's a bit of both as well, and there's a different cost to steel as well, concrete. So there is, and there's a construction element to it as well. And
did you ever have kind of a situation where you want to go one particular direction, or even worse, you want to go one particular direction with something new, all right? And then you've got that balance of, well, we need to do it this way, and then there's the finance and everything. How do you get your idea across the line with a customer? When we're working on design builds with big contractors, they certainly have opinions. And we also have a set of what's called works requirements that we have to comply with as well. So the employer or the client, the client would have a set of works requirements. So we've got to comply with that. And then within that, we will talk to the contractor. We'll value engineer solutions that will optimize the design for them. We've been talking about Galway, we've been talking about Cork, let's keep on the west side of the country, and the independent Republic of Donegal. Have you done any work up that neck of the woods?
Yeah, so we've done quite a bit of work up in Donegal, over the years, but we're currently working on a significant project up in Donegal called the Donegal 10T project. So that involves, 3 sections of the National Primary Network in Donegal. There's a section that bypasses Ballybuffet. There's a section that bypasses Letterkenny, includes a new bridge over the Swilly River, and then there's a section that from Letterkenny down to Lifford, again, which joins the A5 in Northern Ireland, and it eventually joins down to the N2 in the Republic again. So that's a large project. It's a multimodal project, so it's not only a road project. It includes active travel and kind of park and share sites that allow for transfer onto the active travel and for parking and bus pickups and things like that. So it's a significant project up in the northwest. And Donegal is probably an area that has had maybe a lack of investment over the years, and I suppose it's peripheral to Ireland, really, and even more so with Brexit. It's probably more peripheral. There's no rail lines either, and no railway in Donegal at all. So they are very much reliant on road infrastructure.
But the railway is more to do with the terrain, isn't it, than funding in Donegal?
I wouldn't think so. Historically, there's been a lot of railway networks, but they're all abandoned, disused at the moment.
Do you think there's an idea in the back of your head there, kind of let's get those rail lines working again?
Well, there is. I think there's recent studies. There's an All Ireland Rail study which does talk about linking Derry down to Letterkenny with a rail line.
It will be good, and it's been done before where previously abandoned rail lines have been brought back to life to great effect. I'd like to ask you about just the management of motorways and roadways, because you're very involved in that side of things. And now JB Barry is now known as Egis Ireland, and they are a multinational big company. What kind of global experience are they bringing to you from managing motorways across Europe and roads across Europe to managing roads in Ireland? What are they bringing to the game?
Yeah, well, I suppose back in 2018 or 2019, and as a company in JB Barry's, so we're always looking what's happening next, and we could see that there was going to be a push into public transport, and there was going to be a lot of investment in rail and light rail, and we didn't have that experience at the time, so we did a bit of looking around, a bit of digging, and Egis are a company that kind of kept coming to us. They're operating in the Irish market since about 1994, I think. But as you said, in the operation side of things, so they manage Dublin Tunnel and Jack Lynch Tunnel and some of the motorways around Ireland. But they also have strong rail capabilities internationally. I had a small Irish rail team actually in Ireland at the time. So we brought them on board for a TII framework. And very soon afterwards, actually, we won a contract to bring the Luas Finglas project through from option selection through to planning stages. So that was kind of our first project. We grew our relationship with them since then. And obviously we've come part of the Egis group fairly recently. So you go back to your question. They have strong operational capability. Manage, as I said, the Jack Lynch and the Dublin Tunnel, and they're involved in motorway maintenance. So they operate part of the motorways around Ireland.
Have you had an opportunity to look at stuff that they've done abroad on a bigger scale that you just kind of went in your head, good God, that's amazing?
Well, no, I'm aware of some of the projects they're involved in, for example, the Paris Metro, and they're doing a lot of work on Paris Metro on extending those lines, which is, I suppose, puts us in a good position looking at the development of Metrolink in Ireland. But where we've got real benefit at the moment is that, we're using their resources on some of our projects. So we're currently working on the detailed design of the Adair bypass for Sis Sorensen, who's our client, the contractors. And again, that is a real pressurised project. It needs to be open in time for the Adair, for the Ryder Cup. So that project has about 12 or 13 bridges on it and need to be all designed quite quickly. So we're using Egis offices around Europe and further afield to design those bridges. So we're using designers in Serbia, Poland, and Thailand to design bridges for us, which is a significant benefit to us, obviously now.
You're pulling in the cavalry, as it were, to get there. And what happens when you're on a big project like that, and there's a very definite deadline? Projects always run late. Do you know what I mean? Problems always occur. Things happen, money runs out, or people get sick, or whatever it happens to be. There's always problems that have to be over. When you've got a hard deadline like that, how do you handle all of the problems leading up to that deadline?
Well, you're right. On all engineering projects, there's challenges. There's things that change. People want to do things differently at a certain time. But what we have is we've a really strong management team in place. We bring in additional resources. We can do that now with the wider group. It's easier for us to do that. And then there's huge communication on the project. So we're dealing with a contractor on that. So there's meetings happening every day. Scheduled meetings happen, a few times a week, and we things are brought to a head really quickly, and we make decisions and we move forward.
Let me ask you about something you mentioned. You mentioned the Luas, and the Metrolink, and there were some very controversial comments recently from Michael O'Leary with Ryanair, which is just what he does. All right,
yeah.
But I thought what he said was that the Metrolink out to the airport, he said, is a waste of time, and I'm used to hearing that. But what he said was that the amount of people who go to Heathrow Airport in London is something like 15% take the tube, which goes all over London. And he's saying his point of view is that an Irish version of that will be a waste of time, because literally you're just going down through whatever, Ballymun, Finglas, that kind of a way. And it's only the people who live in those direct areas would actually get the benefit. Is there any sense, or is he completely wrong, or how do you respond?
Well, I'm not directly involved in the Metrolink project myself, but I can give you my own personal opinion on it.
That's all I want. And this is nothing to do with the company. It's just between Eamon and Dusty, and that's it. Go on.
Absolutely. So for me, I think that's a real simplified view of the thing. First of all, I think that as a capital city, we certainly need a rail link into our city centre. Yeah. I think that's a given. I think if you look at the capital cities all around the world, they all have a rail link. And generally it's an underground rail link. But I think it's a very simplified view. For me, it's way more than just one link from the airport into the city centre. It's part of an integrated public transport system. So what I mean by that is that Metrolink isn't just a rail. It has stations, it has linkages. So it's going to link to Dart Plus. It's going to link to the Luas. It's going to link to the heavy rail system, and it's going to link to bus connects. Yeah. So it's people can and it's like that in any public transport system. People need to move or jump trains, or jump from bus to train, or jump from Luas to train, and this is what it will do. And it's the first line. It may continue and it may expand. But what it does do, it's certainly going to help at some point to reach our climate targets. And I read somewhere, and I hope I'm right in this, that by somewhere around 2050, it's going to divert 350 million car trips or something like that, which is a huge number. So it's going to take significant passengers, and it's a really efficient way of traveling.
And I'm a big believer in, if you build it, they will come. It's taken from some movie or whatever, but if it's not there, people will moan. But as soon as it's there and you've gone through all of the pain, it's like, sure, I'll go into town, I'll take the Metrolink out to the airport. And I know from myself and my friends, when you're travelling abroad and you get there to the airport, and if there's no train, you kind of go, come on. You don't do that when you come back to Dublin for some reason. I don't know why. But the bus connects, the bus side of it was another thing that Michael was saying. He says there's a really good bus service from Dublin Airport, and I always feel sorry when I come home to Dublin, and I'm hearing people that kind of like, I'm going to get the bus to Galway now, and I'm going, But the fact that you can get the bus from Dublin Airport non-stop around the M50 and straight over to Galway is a huge improvement and what it was years ago. And I know the bus connects are making similar kind of improvements. Can you tell me more about them? Because you're involved in them as well.
Yeah, we're involved in a couple. We're involved in a bus connect scheme in Galway that's currently with uncommissioned Planola for pet food. But we're also involved in the bus connects projects in Dublin. So there's 12, I suppose, quality bus corridors being sustainable transport corridors, just call them, being constructed in Dublin, and the first two of those bus corridors have already been tendered. So we're a part of a team with a contractor called Graham's, and we've tendered the first two projects with them. So we're the preferred bidder on one of those projects. So we're hoping that we'll get over the line at some point. But if not, we'll be involved in one of those projects at some point in the future.
Let's talk about a topic that is always close to every engineer's heart or dread: planning. Lots of changes in the planning scenario recently. We've got a renaming of the planning board. There's changes in legislation and stuff like that. It's still a difficult area. Where did the problems arise for you?
It's changed hugely over my career anyway. So when I started off planning of road schemes back in the early 2000s, you could take a road project from feasibility study right through to planning, maybe in the order of 4 years or 5 years. Now it's taken 10 years or 10 years plus to get it through the system. And things have changed through that period, like the whole process is like feasibility. The option selection is a good one. So we would have gone through an option selection to choose the right type of project and the right type of road and the right location for within about 12 months. And that's taken significantly longer now. And there's different processes. So now when we start a project, we need to justify if it's a bypass or if it's a rail line. So we have to look at the forms of transport initially to come up with, to see if it's a bypass, and then we start a process of looking at a long list of options and shorter lists of options, and so it just takes a lot longer. There's more processes, and that's to do with the planning as well, to show that we've gone through all the processes correctly. And then there's also approvals in terms of business case approvals, which is getting more and more stringent, and we need to get a government approval at certain points in the process. So one of the things you mentioned was the new Planning and Development Act was in 2024, and again, I think there was a few things for that. Was really to help with accelerating the planning process, and the law aims to balance kind of faster housing and infrastructure with a need to protect, the heritage. So recently we've kind of seen some projects go through the planning process quicker. So the Bus Connects is an example. There was the same bypass, and they've gone through without the need for oral hearings, which is a positive. Is a positive thing, in that it's going to help quicken up them. So I think there have been changes on what Planola has become, on commissioning Planola, and really it's all to do with trying to get decisions made in a more timely manner.
And are you feeling positive that may happen?
I am feeling positive, yes. I've seen, on some projects recently, we've seen the R Plus and we've seen Bus Connects. It does seem to be happening, yeah.
And tell me about resources as well, because that's another problem in engineering that people need to get over. You're often asked to do too much with not enough.
Yeah, I think resources is a huge challenge at the moment in Ireland. So we can see the National Development Plan. I think it's 275 billion to be spent between 2026 and 2035, and of that, and even in transportation, it's over 22 billion. We can see there's a housing crisis, a huge need for housing to be built, and that all takes resources. So there's only so many resources in Ireland. We can't make them. There's only so many coming out each year from the university. So we do need to use international resources and design centres. But there's also a need to bring those resources to Ireland and into the country to work here. But again, it's a bit of a vicious circle, because we bring people into the country, there's nowhere to house them. So it is a challenge. But also, within our practice in consulting engineers, we're looking for a large number of engineers and technicians, and as are other consulting engineers. But also, the clients are also looking for people to manage their projects. So you have TII, you have local authorities, and the NTA and RSRA, and they're all looking for engineers and people to manage the projects for them on their side. So yeah, it is a challenge. It's one we're trying to work through, and even as a company, it's difficult.
It's a strange thing because I hear that quite a lot, that we don't have enough engineers. And there's no point in asking where we're going to get them from, because we're all engineers listening and the pair of us chatting. But what would you say to engineers listening to our chat today? What should they be saying to their friends or their nieces, nephews, their friends' kids or whatever, to try and encourage them to just get into engineering? Because it's such an amazing, fascinating career.
Well, I would say that there's variety every day. There's different challenges every day. The projects are all different. There's a variety of different, like I'm working in transportation, but even within transportation, there's rail, there's bus, there's roads, there's a significant variety. And then there's the whole, there's housing and infrastructure, that type of infrastructure. There's water, wastewater side. Again, there's a huge need we can't build houses without, improving, having new water supply and water treatment. So there's a huge factor. So it's great opportunities for anyone, coming in, or young people, I suppose, or graduates in civil engineering at the moment. And it's similar, like when I graduated in 1995 from UCD, was probably a great time to be graduating, because I think the class in 94, a lot of them emigrated to get work. And I think the majority of the 95, 96 class when I graduated all got employment within Ireland.
And they were lucky.
Absolutely.
I often think, since I've started doing the podcast, it's kind of like you say, traveling the world or whatever. But they used to say that if you can tend bar, you can work anywhere. And I actually think that engineering is a bit like being a barman, except the pay is way better and the hours are far more sociable. So I can't see why. Because you said it yourself when you started off. You said you were getting your experience and you were in the big cities and all that kind of stuff, but you wanted to move to Mayo. Boom, off you went.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you're following your life.
Yeah, and even more so now, like with hybrid working, it's
it's even easier again. Yeah, and also the fact that you're able to bring in people from around Europe when you have a deadline on, and you're able to bring in that help. Like, that's what I'm just saying, is the flexibility and everything. There's so much to it. Way more people should be getting into engineering. Listen, let me kind of wrap up our little chat today. Another thing that's very important to engineers right across the board is sustainability. Your point of view with sustainability, give it to me.
Obviously, sustainability is huge at the moment. Climate is huge. So sustainability needs to come into all projects. So, like an example is at Luas Finglas, we've come up with a really innovative, sustainable solution, in that the majority of that is going to be a grass track, which is a really sustainable design. But also in terms of other infrastructure projects. So we're not only developing road schemes, but we're looking at how to develop them more sustainable. So we're really looking at, for example, the cut-fill balance. So how much we have to dig out and where we have to place it, and can we reuse that material? So there's really as little amount of waste as possible within a project. And we're also looking at sustainable ways of travel within a project. So we're building active travel elements alongside the road to allow for people, to have mode of choice and to shift from cars to cycling, bicycles, or whatever it is. So look, sustainability is part of what we're doing now all the time. It's really business as usual.
Let me ask you if you can give a little bit of advice to people listening about moving up the chain. What would you say, from your own experience, are the most effective ways for an engineer to fast track their career in a large consultancy?
It's a very good question, Dusty. So, as I said, it at the moment is a really positive time. The outlook for engineers is fantastic at the moment. There's going to be great projects and mega projects in Ireland over the next 10 to 15, 20 years. So there's a great experience. It's a great time to be a young engineer. I would suggest get as much design experience as possible, get as much varied experience as possible. So if you're working in roads, do it for a while, learn a bit about railways, learn about structures, vary your experience. But also, I suppose, with so much work on it, it also brings a bit of pressure and design pressure. So I think good mentorship is good. That's someone you can go to and talk to. As young engineers, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to worry if your design you've done is correct. And there's problems all the time in engineering, but they do get resolved. Don't be afraid to ask for help, to explain your concerns. there's always a solution. It's generally not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, making mistakes is almost the best way to learn. Not big mistakes now, but little mistakes. You mentioned a mentor there. Did you have a mentor yourself?
I've had lots of mentors over the years. I suppose I spent a long time in JB Barry and Partners, so I've been with them really since 1999 with a short sabbatical to the west of Ireland, joined Tobas. But when I joined JB Barry's in 1999, Liam Pendeville was there at the time. And he led up the transportation division. So I've worked closely with Liam since 1999, and he's been a great mentor to me over those years.
And how did he mentor you? What way did he improve you?
I would say just be able to bounce things off and to be able to talk problems through, issues through. I think that's really, it's as simple as that. Just that things come up and we talk things through, and we came up with ways to resolve them or to move forward.
Grant. So if Liam, I think Liam was the managing director, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, yeah.
Quite often it's hard to sit down and have a coffee with your managing director just to chat out problems. But it's good to have a mentor who's maybe one or two steps above you, yeah?
Absolutely. And I think you'll have mentors who are peers. You'll have mentors who are, maybe your line managers, but also anyone in the company can be a mentor to you. I think you have to be able to approach people and be able to talk to them.
And you don't necessarily have to go, because with the internet now, there's loads of people. Oh, I'm a coach and I'm a mentor, and you don't have to go down that line. It's people around you that you can use. I think it's people who know the industry. It's people you can confide in. It's people you can talk to if you have an issue or a problem or you have a concern. And then outside of your immediate environs, I'm thinking about professional networks, I suppose, like Engineers Ireland or industry organisations. Have you found them to be valuable for your own career growth?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Engineers Ireland do great work. They have great CPD, continuing professional development. So they're constantly putting on talks of lectures. So I find them very good and attend those regularly. We're also part of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Ireland again, which kind of, I suppose, give advice and protect consulting engineers. So yeah, I find both those organisations to be very helpful. Well,
and they have live meetups, as they call it these days, events, as you say, where you can actually go and hold a cup of coffee or a pint of Guinness or whatever, and you say hello to somebody and how are you? Do you find that kind of conversation with people useful?
And it's like, I think networking outside your organisation is always useful. And look, we as consulting engineers regularly talk to other consulting engineers to see what's happening, what's going on. And, we talk from time to time with, on certain projects or really large projects about teaming up with other consultants. So it's always good to talk. We talk to contractors constantly. Me up with them to find out what's going on from their side and what projects are coming up and what they're looking at. So we're constantly looking and chatting to them.
Grant. So now you're kind of sitting high up in the operation. You've got lots of engineers who are coming up the ladder. We may have a couple of engineers listening going, I want to move up. If you were starting your engineering career today, what areas would you focus on to future-proof your skills?
Well, I'm a little bit biased, so I'd be saying transportation. So, and you can see, we spoke about the National Development Plan earlier, and the likes of Metrolink and the Luas and the road network that needs to be improved. So I just, there's great opportunity there.
All right, good stuff. Listen, Eamon, you have been an absolute genius and a joy to talk to, and you've given us so much of your time and so much great information. Thank you very, very much. If you'd like to find out more about Eamon's work and the topics we discussed today, you'll find notes and link details in the description of this podcast. But for now, Eamon Daly, Director at Egis, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dusty.
We hope that you enjoyed our conversation today. If you know another engineer who would appreciate these insights, please do share this podcast with them. They can find us by searching for Engineers Ireland wherever they listen to podcasts. The podcast is produced by dustpod.io for Engineers Ireland. For advanced episodes, more information on the latest trends or career development advice, you can find a wealth of resources on the website at engineersireland.ie. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, thank you for listening.